Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guest is Blair Carson, who's the president and CEO of Gladiator Gold Mines, who are a US-based minerals firm focused on the development of their unique high-grade, 100% owned gold mine in Arizona. They own 2,300 acres with the potential of up to 1.8 million ounces of gold equivalent resource from their known exploration targets. Blair has over 35 years of experience in project management, in marketing, and has founded Gold Reef Minerals and served as the CEO of Northwest Arizona, as well as previously served in management positions with other mining companies. It's going to tell us a little bit more about the story behind Gladiator Gold Mines, what they've been doing, and what the potential of this asset is. Hi, Blair. Welcome to the podcast. How are you doing?
Good, Rob. Good. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. So, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your career, about your background? As I mentioned, you've been in the industry for 35 years, so you've obviously seen a lot of the mining industry. So, I just wonder if you can just run us through your career, tell us a little bit about yourself, up to sort of present day.
Well, sure. I started my career, first of all, I'm second generation in the mining business, so I've benefited from the experience of my father in the past. And then since then, probably 8 years old was the first time I went on an exploration site. And it's been going since. I've gone to Haileybury School of Mines and worked at Lakefield Research in the R&D department and as well in the lab or in the pilot plant. I went out on my own after I left Lakefield and carried on a number of different things. Worked with my father some, worked independently on some other things, mining related. Most of it has been gold-based because I've always had an affinity for gold. And, with the prices today, I think there's probably more than just myself. But gold is an easy one to sell. And you don't need a whole marketing team for, as you do with base metals. So I've primarily focused on gold. And the only exception to that would be in and around 94, 96, I think I was involved with the diamond exploration in Saskatchewan, Canada. And we found a number of interesting, what looked like pipes, at least on the magnetic survey that we did. So that was fairly interesting in the diamond side, but mostly I've stayed with gold. I've had, I've staked many claims, worked in the bush a lot, and working at Lakefield gave me the background from the metallurgical side that in the processing of the ores, and that was very good. After that, I had a few projects of my own, alluvial. We've worked in Central British Columbia on some projects there, again, gold. It was a base metal project, but, I was focused on the gold aspects of it. And we managed to, to find some. That didn't go ahead because of, some government regulations and things that just stopped us dead. From there, I think, the highlights, I was involved with Gold Reef Mining, which is a company that I founded. We had a flux ore that took almost 2 years to get authorization with Freeport-McMoRan here locally in Arizona. It was an Arizona-based project. It was a flux, like I said, and the flux was the silica for their processing, for their smelter process, and we were going to get the gold credits for it, which were fairly significant. Then came along Gladiator, and I acquired Gladiator from my father, and he got to be a little too old and wasn't interested in doing anything with it, as sometimes happens. And so that sort of brings us to today, where we've Michael and I co-founded Gladiator Gold Mines Corp, which is Michael Opara is the other senior person in the company, and we've been focused on bringing this project forward. We've done a number of things with it, and so that's where we are today. I've done to back up, I've done a number of different consulting jobs for other mining companies in the interim, when I haven't had my own projects to do. And so that pretty much brings us to today.
Yeah. So I just wondering if you just tell us, obviously, about the history of the Gladiator Gold Mine. And obviously, we understand it's been in your family for a number of years. So I just wondering if you give us a little bit about the history about the company, and also a snapshot of what's happening currently.
Well, sure. I think it was 1870 that this discovery was made. They mined some high-grade gold ore that was never reported. And then I think they made application for the patented status that we have here in the U.S., which allows all mining, and it's fee simple, is they become the owner of the property itself. That was back in the original discovery was in 1870, probably around 1871 they brought in the mining laws, and so that's when they went ahead and tried to patented the land. These claims predate statehood, which was I think 1912. So the project owns everything. It's not we own water rights, timber rights, everything else on the property, and which is, fairly significant in today's world, I guess. There's less encumbrances because we're patented. And the people that had it originally leased it to another company that tried to do some work, but they failed because it was just too far to bring the gold. I mean, it was a high grade deposit back then, the high grade, but when you have no processing facility and you're direct shipping ore on the back of burros, it becomes quite difficult. So they shut the project down, and then I think it was 1890, I think there was a road put into the little community of Crown King, which actually made it quite a bit easier. And they brought in a stamp mill to process the ore. And that turned out to be a much better endeavor, because they could, they get 4-to-1, and then they got it up to 15-to-1 concentration ratio, which was, fairly significant at the time, especially from a transportation cost. So they did quite well. I think 22,000 tons were mined in between 37 and 47, 1942. 1937 to 1947, they mined around 22,000 tons that they sent to the smelter, and it netted them about $1 million, and that's $1 million when gold was $20 an ounce. So it's fairly significant. In 1947, they shut the project down after the war, and it remained dormant till around 1980, when I think Noranda Exploration took a crack at it. They leased the project and did quite a bit of exploration work, and it didn't quite fit their mine model, which was high tonnage and not necessarily high grade. Although it was even today, or let's say a few years ago, when I met with one of their people that was there, they were quite intrigued with the project itself. It's just it didn't quite fit the criteria of their company, so they walked away. And I think in 83, is when Norquest Resources, a Canadian public company founded by my father, made the agreement with the Bennetts and the Moores, who were the owners of the mine at that time. They optioned it and acquired it in 83, 84. It was 84, so just after the acquisition was the first time I was on the project, and I was quite young at the time. I wasn't even able to drive yet, but I was on the project. And it evolved from there. They brought it to, they had a feasibility study done, which was positive. And the director of mines for Arizona, well, he became the director of mines in Arizona later on, but he originally did the feasibility study of the Gladiator. And at that time, he thought it was one of the best gold mining projects in Arizona. And this is going back to 83, 84. So the company Norquest Resources formed Norquest Arizona Inc., which I'm now president and CEO of as well. And, started going forward with developing a mill on site at 120 tons per day. And, in today's world, 120 tons is almost a pilot project. But this project is, it's low tonnage and high grade. And that's the significant part of this project, which allows us to keep our operating costs per ounce quite low compared to other projects. So from there, we did quite a bit of work when I bought the project. And then Michael and I met probably earlier in 2016 and developed Gladiator Gold Mines Corp. And, we co-founded it together and put the project in Gladiator Gold Mines Corp. And have been moving forward ever since. We've done quite a bit of work on the project. Still more to be done, obviously, but we did produce some gold from the project. And that brings us to today. We're doing a capital raise now, and so we're talking to people, and that's where we sit today.
Yeah. Obviously, you've been in the industry for a while now. What would you say, what does the Gladiator Gold Mines, why are they special or different to maybe other gold mining opportunities within the US and I suppose within Arizona and local other states as well?
I think the biggest thing about the Gladiator Gold Mine is the grade. There are some other projects that have as high a grade as we do. We have approximately 0.43 ounces per ton of gold, and then 6 times silver. So, around 2.5 ounces of silver per ton plus, And so I think the grade is the highest, the biggest difference, because in today's world, that's considered high grade. And back in the day, those were cutoff grades. So I think that's part of why we have this mining project, and this is a project you can calculate out on the back of an envelope and see that it's going to be successful because of the grade. The grade that we quote is a diluted grade as well, which is that's also significant in the industry, because we have diluted. So that means that the waste rock is already calculated into that grade. The other thing that, and we're in a good mining jurisdiction. Yavapai County here in Arizona is they're pro mining. They see the mining opportunity as a job creation for the state and for our county, and they've given us the thumbs up on helping move the project forward, which is fairly significant, I think. The other thing that the project has is there's electrum in the ore, which is an alloy of silver and gold, which you don't see that very often. And we've got a great. Oh, go ahead. Oh, we've got a great land position as well, and we've got we've focused in on our current numbers that we've published are focused in on the Gladiator Gold Mine itself, and don't necessarily take into account The other historical mines that have not been in operation for since early 1900. Crown King itself, just as a background, Crown King itself had over 3,000 mining people in town, and currently there's 95. So it gives you an indication at that time the significance of this area in the Bradshaws that we're in. There's other high grade prospects on our radar within our claim group that we look to develop and provide ore to the mill as we go forward.
What is the current status and reserve potential of the mine?
The current status of the project is we've got approximately 94,000 ounces of gold in the proven and probable category. I think it's 48% in the proven and 42% in the probable. The reason that number isn't larger is the way the mine was brought into production and the feasibility study that was done. They wanted to have 3 years ahead of them, and every year they do additional exploration and add to those proven and probable categories. We believe that with the land position that we have in the project, that we've got tremendous upside. We believe that there's at least 1.8 million in gold equivalent. Moving forward, we plan to capitalize on that and extract it.
Obviously, gold is the main commodity. Is there any other metals in reserves? Obviously, you've mentioned silver. Is there any other commodities within the actual whole asset that you have?
Yeah, we've got this is a polymetallic project where gold and silver are obviously the two main targets. But there's silver, there's a bit of lead, there's zinc, and there's copper. The zinc is 5%, which is fairly significant as well. But those are things that we'll get credit for as we go forward with the process the processing as we've laid it out to go. But there's going to be some credits from that as well. And when we talk about 5 ounce or 5% zinc at 200,000 tons of material that we know is there, there's a fairly significant amount of zinc and 0.5% copper, which is also significant. And those will come out as we, with the processing. So those will be credits that we're not calculating into the actual cost of production and based with gold.
Obviously, you mentioned that you're looking to raise some capital at the moment. What is that capital for? And I suppose where you're looking to allocate that once you've raised the money.
Yeah, we're like I said earlier, we're doing a capital raise, and the money will go directly into the ground for. We currently have a 120 ton a day mill. We want to bring that up to 300 tons a day. So underground development, mill development, and additional ore reserve development is where this money's going to go. We expect that we'll have a fairly significant project as we go forward.
And I wondered, obviously, for our international listeners, I wonder if you just give us an overview or an update on what's happening with obviously mining in the US, and I suppose in and around the states where you are. Just wondering if you can give us an update on the current environmental climate.
The environmental climate is in certain jurisdictions it can be quite difficult. We're fortunate that we're in a mining friendly area, and I think that has a lot of benefits. And the fact that the county is prepared to help us with moving this project forward. Our goal is to do a zero discharge, which means that we'll be creating an inert tailings product and backfilling it with paste backfill technology back into the underground stopes. That'll give us a couple of things that, maybe being an existing mine, we have a lot of workings that we can backfill. And some of that backfilling will allow us to go back and mine the pillars that were left in the past. And those are fairly significant in grades, considerably more than what we've been talking about. But, there's not that much. So that's just kind of a bit of extra gravy down the road, if you will, with those grades. So I think, permitting from our perspective, we may not even need an ADEQ, which is Arizona Department of Environmental Quality permit. We don't plan to have a tailings pond. Everything will go back underground. So that's a benefit that we have over, some other projects. And our location is the other key factor with the county supporting our endeavor.
Yeah. And lastly, what's the sort of near-term, short to medium-term plans for Gladiator moving forward?
The short-term plan is to, get our capital raised behind us and put this project into production, start generating some cash flow, get into the underground. That's probably, we've broken this project into two phases, a phase one and a phase two. Phase one is mainly going after the oxide zone on surface, and phase two is going back into the underground and dealing with the complex sulfides. But, we've got proven recovery numbers of, 89 to 93% from past production on the project. So we need to fine tune that process, and we may be able to get better recoveries. But we may not either. It's still, that's a very good number in as far as industry standards are concerned. So we're looking to get phase one underway virtually immediately. It's we figure it's at most 90 days away from once we're funded, and that would be that's the near term goal. Longer term, in 2 years, would be to get into the underground. And, there's things that have to be accomplished in any underground mining project, and most of those are regulatory. And that gives us the surface to mine while we're, conducting all the regulatory procedures for the underground, and move forward with the underground portion of this phase two. From there, we plan to develop the veins that are, horizontal to us, and or parallel, that we've got a number of parallel veins, and move forward with that. And we have 7 other pre-existing mines that we need to do some additional development work on to determine if the feed is worthwhile putting through the mill. And we suspect that it is, only because the mineralogy in the region is fairly consistent, because of the deposition that was there. So the long term is to branch out beyond where we are with the Gladiator, and start including other old mines into this project, and that'll increase the lifespan of this project. And we expect at least 20, 30 years on this project as we go forward, because of the nature that it was brought into production in the 80s. So that's where we're going, and I think there's a lot of upside in the region. There's a number of mines that we've actually been approached about, and they wanted to make a deal with us when we were busy doing some testing at the project on site there with the mill. So I don't see that'll be a big problem bringing in some of these other projects. It just requires some development work to see if they're worthwhile.
Blair, thank you for your time. Thank you for sharing your story, and obviously telling us about Gladiator Gold, obviously the history and where you are today. If our audience wants to reach out to you, if they want to follow your story, get obviously regular updates from yourself, how can they go about doing that, and what social media platform channels are you on?
We are currently in the process of setting up a Gladiator Gold Mines LinkedIn page. So that's probably the easiest, and I suspect that you have emails there that will be posted with this, and we can go from there. I'm open to discussing anything with anybody.
Yeah, and we'll include all those details in the show notes accompanying this, obviously for easy access. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rob.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, and good luck with the capital raising, and obviously moving forward with the project.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed that episode. As always, please keep sharing this far and wide with people in our industry, but also people outside of our industry, to share the message, share what mining is all about, and obviously improve the branding of our industry. So until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.